am Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, President Goodluck Jonathan, General Muhammadu Buhari, and other presidential candidates sign a accord for a violence-free election in the country. Former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan advises displaced indigenes from northeast of Nigeria not to develop apathy for the 2015 elections. National Assembly members expressed doubt over Nigeria's ability to finance 4.3 trillion naira budget for 2015 due to falling oil prices. And at least 10 people have been killed after a bus carrying prisoners lost control and collided with a train in Texas, United States.
On business news, the federal government targets $68.1 billion foreign direct investment from newly licensed free zones. While on sports news, the Confederation of African Football, CAF, insists participating team with the 2015 Nations Cup must undergo tests for the deadly Ebola virus.
It's barely a month to the 2015 presidential elections, and the major candidates, President Goodluck Jonathan of the People's Democratic Party and General Muhammadu Buhari of the All Progressives Congress, today signed an accord to ensure a violence-free process before, during and after the elections. The forum, chaired by the former Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Emeka Anyaoku, and attended by the former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, saw both men agreeing not to make statements that will heat up the polity. Our State House correspondent Chukwuma Onekwusi reports.
It was an event that brought together all the presidential candidates, including the two major gladiators in the February presidential elections, President Goodluck Jonathan and General Muhammadu Buhari. They had to put off the campaigns to sign this accord to abide by the rules and shun violence in all its ramifications. Dr. Kofi Annan is still in the country. He joins other speakers to remind the presidential candidates of their responsibilities, which includes how to fix Nigeria's problems and not inflammatory statements.
I know that you have the power in this room to influence what candidates and supporters do and say in the weeks ahead. I hope you will use that power to focus attention on your party's policies, not the personalities. Let us talk about how to fix Nigeria's problems.
The country's unity in diversity must not be undermined by campaigns that seek to exploit either of our two major national fault lines, ethnicity and religion. Any injudicious introduction of these two factors into the contestation for votes in any part of the country would be bound to stoke up flames of violence.
There's no acceptable alternative. There's no plan B for free, fair, and credible elections in Nigeria.
The electoral umpire wonders why elections are prone to violence. He pledged to conduct the elections on a level playing field for all the parties and called on the parties to make an undertaking to also play by the rules.
The attitude and disposition of parties and candidates will determine to a large extent whether we have peaceful or non-violent elections.
Presidential candidate of the APC is running for the fourth time. His experience is harrowing as he calls on the judiciary, the INEC and political agents to be wary of their conducts.
On paper, you can't catch Nigeria. You can't. You can only catch Nigeria in the field. Practical implementation. Go to any ministry, go to any first data, you will get administrative instruction how the human beings, the workers, Nigeria should be managed from flow cleaning one to the permanent secretary and to the minister when he eventually gets there.
The audience had an opportunity to know how serious the other presidential candidates are.
We must redeem our political culture we must redeem our image.
For the incumbent president and presidential candidates of the People's Democratic Party, abusive, provocative, and threats are issues the political leaders should guide against. He also calls on INEC to be transparent. He questioned the character of some politicians and the need for a review of the winner-takes-it-all syndrome in Nigerian politics.
Nigerians will agree with me. Since I became a president, I have conducted a number of governorship elections, senatorial elections, and others. They are not perfect elections, but they have been reasonably fair. And that's why I say that even the opposition parties should commend me for that. And we promise that we will do more, because I believe that when we conduct our elections must be credible, not just by our own thinking, but everybody must believe that elections are credible.
The signing of the accord was supervised by none other than Chief Emeka Anyoko, an accord Nigerians say all of them must abide by. The presidential candidates get back to the field to continue with their campaigns. The next time they will meet perhaps will be in the ballot box come February 14. For now, they leave here with a food for thought that Nigeria cannot afford to make the mistakes of the past. Chukwuma Onwekusi, Channels Television News.
And from the peace accord meeting, the former UN scribe Kofi Annan proceeded to the Hilton in Abuja, where he took questions from journalists on his views about the elections. He told the gathering that he'd love to see Indigenes of the troubled N.East cast their vote in spite of the insurgency in their area. Our correspondent Gloria Umezoke reports.
The fear of violence during the upcoming 2015 general elections had remained a serious threat to the core success of the polls. Built-up frustration by many families who have been directly affected by terrorism, poverty, and the lack of education has over time given rise to huge grief and antagonism, especially towards the government or politicians. But ahead of this critical general election, the former Secretary General of the United Nations calls for calm.
Walking away from politics or being frustrated with politics is common with many young people, even in your own country. There are some young people who are frustrated with politicians and with politics. But I would urge those, despite in the Northeast, who are frustrated, that they should think it through, exercise their right to vote, and think about who can help them. Which party has a serious program of tackling the insurgency.
Mr. Annan is confident that the nation's electoral umpire, INEC, will not fail in its promise to work out a sound strategy that incorporates every eligible voter.
Where the systems are weak and the people are not sure that their votes are going to count or the results are what it should have been, then you run into difficulty and it becomes difficult to govern, because your legitimacy as a leader or as a government is questioned. Africa has changed. People now understand what is going on.
He equally enjoined the government to work towards diversifying the nation's economy.
Nigeria has very dynamic and entrepreneurial business class, and they should work with the government, the private-public partnerships, to really get the economy going, get into manufacturing, agriculture, which can create lots of jobs for the young people, and work in diversifying the economy, because we import a lot, not only in Nigeria. As Africa, we spend $35 billion a year importing food, when we have all the land around us and we can produce to feed ourselves.
Well, the bane of the many discussions and advice by the African statesman is on how to repress violence during and after the elections. But what is certain to him as well is that the African continent will be positively affected if Nigeria gets it right at the general elections. Gloria Umezoke, Channels Television News.
And the man who handed over power to civilians in 1999, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, is also calling for a violence-free election. The general, who addressed the forum at the National Defense College in Abuja, also advocates an annual review of the nation's security policy and a 4-year comprehensive review of same. Our correspondent Amaka Okafor reports.
Participants of course 23 of the National Defense College and senior military officers at a lecture series on strategic leadership. The guest of honor is the former head of state, retired General Abdulsalami Abubakar, who gave advice on how to tackle insecurity in the country.
It is advisable that once in a year, in a situation like ours, it is to do a quick strategic and operational review of our security policy from bottom to top, and once in 3 or 4 years, a comprehensive security review at all levels.
General Abdulsalami also advised the government to ensure that its security think tank is made up of knowledgeable and experienced military and civilian personnel who have the interest of the country at heart.
It is not unusual for most strategic leaders in a country and his ministers to have knowledge and experience gap in this policy area. But this gap can be filled by having a smart minister and knowledgeable and experienced national security advisor with a quality team of civilians and military serving or retired at the strategic team.
When asked to share his experience of the strategic leadership decision he took as president of the country, General Abdulsalami says it is returning the nation to democratic rule more than 14 years ago.
Myself and my colleagues thought that the way we are going, if nothing is done to bring back democracy, Nigeria stands a chance of disintegration. Like I said, both the military, the civilians were talking not of Nigeria, but talking of our region.
The consensus at this event is that to tackle and win the war against insecurity, the government must make strategic moves that are result-oriented. Amaka Okafor, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, young professionals in Nigeria also warn against electoral violence. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.